Want to do the intro this week? Welcome to Pentool Pals and all that stuff. Cool.
Yeah.
Change it up.
Let's do this.
Cool.
Thank you for being a pal.
All right, and welcome back. Week 3, episode 3 of Pentool Pals.
Woo!
This is a friendly graphic design podcast between two graphic designers. I'm Cole from Cole F Design.
I'm Cam from Canvas Design Company. Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us again. Last week was another big success. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching us. We're just really stoked to keep this going. And, week 3 now, Cam.
Yeah, man. This week I don't look like a hobo. Got my hair cut, trimmed down my beard.
Yeah.
While editing these videos, I see how fat my cheeks are. So how was your week?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I too cleaned up just a little bit. I don't want to blame it all on the podcast, but seeing how good Cam looks with his fade now, I thought maybe I was, slacking a little bit. So I followed along with the trend. Well, this week we got a lot to unpack. I think that the huge question that we had was, how do you find your references and what that really looks like within the design community? And I think that the main question is really, and it will continue to be, what is using references and basically what is stealing. And I think that those two have a very thin line. And that's really what we want to get across with this episode. When I first started, I've always started as a drawer or a cartoonist. Cartooning was a big part of my life, and learning about anatomy and how to draw the body and like eyes and faces were all like a big thing. And also like the hardest. I really could never figure it out. It wasn't until I was taking some sort of like body drawing class where like people come in like naked and you draw them like in class in college. Super weird, but it was like the most helpful thing I've ever done in my life. And that was the first time I really learned how to do it. But before that, it was really about like sketching one, but also tracing, tracing like the human body and how that works and how to get your facial structure right. And finding the right references was a huge thing that increased and improved my art tremendously. And without that, like, I don't think I would have been where I am now.
Kind of the same, actually. When I was younger, I have an obsession with Marvel comics and like superheroes. And I would get comic books and I would just draw Wolverine, I'd draw Iron Man. And but something I've always struggled with is proportions. I have never been able to get like proportions correct. And so, and I would always like look at the comic and then I would draw it and his arms were way too big and stuff like that. And it's funny you bring up like tracing. When you're just figuring stuff out, it's like okay to trace.
Yeah.
I think there's a stigma there. All artists think it's like not okay to trace, and it's not okay to reference. It's like not everyone has like a photographic memory. I sure as hell don't. And I need reference material. I need to look at things and be inspired. And I think that it's very, very important, especially if like you're an artist, designer trying to get your foothold in the industry. It's very, very important to know what the designers you're looking up to are doing.
I think on top of it too is, you're also going to get briefs from clients that are like, I want something like this or in a certain style. And then you've already been provided a reference without you even, asking for it. Right. And a client wants what they want and you have to provide that. And like a designer, we have to kind of develop and create accordingly to the client's requests, right? So once the client gives me the brief, what I'll do is I'll usually go straight to Pinterest. I'll create more of a board. Let's say I'm looking for a snake, and I'll wrap this further into what I do on a daily. I'll show you exactly what I'm doing, but I'll find maybe 10 to 20 references of snakes, either real or graphic representations of them, and then figure out how that body and the anatomy works and how I want my snake to look, and get that real reference points from somewhere like a Pinterest or an Instagram or wherever it may be.
Yeah, I do the same thing. It's important to get everything right. I've drawn 1,000 snakes, and they all look terrible. I came up in traditional tattooing, and I kind of put the 2 and 2 together. It's like you can be a really, really skilled tattoo artist who can do a snake freehand, but I'm the kind of artist that I'm gonna have to like prep it, take reference, make sure that those scales are right and doing all that stuff. But at the end of the day, the client's gonna be happy. They have something of their own. They have something to take away that they're really, really happy about. And that's the job.
That's the job.
That's
Exactly.
the job.
I think that it's a great segment to where I'll show you, a little bit how I use references appropriately and how that looks. And I think that this is kind of like peeling back the curtains of an artist. Yeah. So this was a reference brief that was not shown to the client. This was strictly just should be shown on Pentool Pals, but this is for a great brand I do a lot of work for called Yo Colorado. They wanted some patches and designs for hats, t-shirts, whatever they could really be used for. But this is kind of what they provided. It wasn't really anything more than this. They were just like, I like these designs, these badges. We want something similar. And they were like, we want a snake, we want a buffalo, and we want a mountain lion. So the first one I went to was a mountain lion. These were the references I pulled, what the client gave me. And I also found like a Google reference of a mountain lion in the face. And I start just like we were saying about finding the outline of the face and how that proportions work. It's really a really good place to be able to make sure that right away your design is correct. And then it's all up to you about how you're going to make it your own. And that's basically step 2 for me, is refining that sketch, making sure that you're putting your own illustration effort into it to make it totally your own. You can call it your own, and you can see in my refined sketch 2 that I'm using that same badge like outline that was provided by the client. Then your final gets something like this, right? Just a cool lockup badge.
Yeah.
And I would say this is definitely, nothing near this mountain line that I pulled from Google, but at the end of the day, you got a cool ass mountain lion badge.
Yeah.
I did the same thing for another one that I provided for them. They gave me the hat. I went and found, and in this case, I think it's really important to show graphic references aside from, a Google animal or drawing, because it's pretty hard to steal from that unless you're a trademarked photo that can't be stolen from, kind of thing. But here's my graphic references. This one is going to be a snake. And so you can see how I kind of formed the body from these two designs that I found reference from, how the snake coils and how the body was kind of like overlapping with each other. And those are the two things I pulled from here. I really liked how this snake's face was super fierce. So I was trying to capture that same sort of look here. Then you got something like this, and you can kind of see how I was able to find those inspirations from the 3 references to create my final mark.
It's great, man.
At the end of the day, this was like what was given to the client. They were able to use all of these in different ways, but I used the same process for every design in this brief, or what I showed to the client. And I was able to really pull my own spin and look and whatever on each and every one of them without, taking someone else's work or like really digging into sketching and drawing a animal from scratch. And at the end of the day, like, they got some cool designs, completely original, and they were stoked. They were really happy. They hooked me up with one of the hats, so that way you can kind of see like the end result.
So here's a little insight on how I approach each job. Is I go to Pinterest and I have them present examples of different things that they like, and I'll actually put that in the board so that I keep that in mind during the sketching process. So I have a branding board that I look at for inspiration. I have a logo board that I have as well for inspiration, and whatever examples that they hand off, I just use that as kind of a guideline of what the end result will be. And then from there, I just start sketching. Here's an example of clean machine meals. I used a bunch of different references that I looked at and created a new mark, because you never know when you're going to need to look at a pineapple really, really quick. And so if I can save it somewhere next to whatever whatever other meal prep company logo that I'm kind of also using as inspiration. If I can look at both of those references in one shot while I'm sketching, it's perfect. Same with, OTB Moto. I had to stay in the lane, and I think it's important. Another reason why I use Pinterest is because you got to know when to stay in your lane. And we finally landed on this mark right here at the top. And here are the two finished logo kits for Clean Machine Meals and OTB Moto. Couldn't be happier with the end result. The client was happy, and that's what you want at the end of every job. And I think the most important thing about everything that we've said is don't steal and be creative. I think that referencing can go so far until you're stealing work.
Do you ever have a story that someone asked you to copy, and how did that situation happen for you?
Funny you asked that, Cole. I do have a funny story. So my buddy Brooks at Nowhere Supply, I've followed him for a really long time. And he just started following me last year, and I was really, really stoked. And then we started chatting through Instagram, kind of how you and I connected. I was just telling him, man, like, I actually was asked a long time ago to do a logo, and they used your graphic as inspiration, but they wanted me to deliberately rip it off. And I told them no. And Brooks straight up was like, well, I appreciate you standing your ground on that, and that would have, not been good. But I think about that story often, because it's like, if you want to build the respect in the community of graphic designers, if you steal art, you're going to lose that respect really, really quick.
Yeah, I think that there's kind of one of those things in the stigmas where you can make 100 or perfectly original designs and then make one that you just rip someone off, and then everyone's going to remember you for that one ripped off design. That whole credibility gets lost, and it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
The main point of what we're trying to do here is create a career and, like you said, a respect for what we create. And when it really comes down to it, knowing in yourself, I think you always know when something's just a little too close and it's just not worth it. Like, go back into the drawing boards, make it your own, create a name for yourself, create a brand for yourself. And,
100%.
It's all worth it in the end.
I think that at the end of the day, if you love doing art and you love what you do and you want to be successful in this world of this really, really, really big world of graphic design, using references, you're going to love those references. Your influence, like every other person and musician, is inspired by a band. Your favorite musician was inspired by their favorite musician. And I think that it's all the same as art. Like, we're inspired because we want to do our best art. And if we can take a little bit of reference and create this thing that we really, really love and we really, really cherish, I think at the end of the day, we're just going to be better designers. And that's what we're in the business for. We're in the business to be better designers. We're in the business to strive and get better every single day. All right, guys. So last week we took a poll right after we dropped the episode of what you would like us to talk about next week. And so JT Moeller, hope I'm saying that right, said pricing out on a project. So I think it's a little bit different. I think it's a little bit more specific on how we would price out a certain project. At Scout Little BB asked, niching down, finding your style. So that would be fun.
That's a good one. That
is a really, really good one.
Yeah.
And then _John Mack said, maybe more of a process, how you get in the creative vibes and how you do it consistently. That's also a really, really good one. I think it would be cool to talk about, how we start our morning, how we get into the creative.
Sure.
Always
lots
have
of coffee.
Lots of coffee.
Yeah. Well, I think that just about wraps up episode 3 of Pentool Pals. Thanks so much for joining, and keep being a pal. Do a like, do a comment, do a share. Like Cam said, let us know what you want to hear from us next week, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah. Bye.